details that the Imam, the Shaykh shared with us today, because I find this quite impressive and at the same time beneficial for all of us, something we need, especially when it comes to stories of prophets or benefits from the glorious Quran. So it's something that we need to take not into our minds but into our hearts. So inshallah we'll start Bismillah. And the Imam started with saying all praise is due to Allah. Then he got into the topic that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shared with us an important story, and He didn't share with us this story for no reason. There was a reason this story was shared. What is the story? The story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Yusuf, also known as Joseph, in the glorious Quran his name is Yusuf. In other scriptures they call him Joseph. He is a prophet, son of a prophet, son of a prophet, son of a prophet. Who was the first grandfather of Yusuf? Who was a prophet? Ibrahim alayhi salam. Ibrahim. Then the son of Ibrahim is Ishaq. The son of Ishaq is Yaqub. The son of Yaqub is Yusuf. All of them were prophets. So this means that these descendants, this family, is one of a kind. It's not like any other family. Why? Because he's a prophet, his father's a prophet, his grandfather's a prophet, his great-grandfather's a prophet. So this family is like really close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This story started off with Yusuf as a young child who was very jealous by his brothers. His brothers were jealous of him because his father loved him more. Now, when we say that his father loved him more, this doesn't mean that his father was unjust. This doesn't mean that his father gave Yusuf, like 10 riyals and gave the other ones 1 riyal. No. This means that he loved him more. He had a higher position in his father's heart. And this is natural because the love is from Allah, the Almighty. It's something we cannot control. So all of us have one child who we love more than the other. Even though we try to love all of them the same, but it's something you cannot control. But at the same time, even though you love one more than the other, you are supposed to be equal with both. So if you buy him a gift for 5 riyals, you buy him a gift for 5 riyals. And Yaqub, the father of Yusuf, was always equal and he was always just, even though he loved Yusuf more. The brothers of Yusuf were very jealous. They were envious. Why does our father love him more? So they plotted against Yusuf. One day they came to the father. They said, "Oh father, we want to take Yusuf out with us. We want to take him with us so he could play. He's always home with you. He never comes out. Just give us this opportunity to go play with Yusuf." So the father at the beginning, he disagrees and he says that I'm afraid the wolf will eat Yusuf. So let him stay home. He's still young. You go play, but let Yusuf stay home because maybe the wolf will eat him. Now the father is afraid of their jealousy more than he is afraid of the wolf eating Yusuf, but he cannot tell them that. And he knows they are jealous. And we know this from the verse from the glorious Quran when Yusuf came to the father. He came to the father and he said, "Oh father, I saw in my dream that 11 planets were prostrating to me." Prostration means sujood. This is the same thing we do in our salah when we put our head on the floor. So Yusuf said, "Oh father, I saw 11 planets like Mars, Venus, and all these other planets. I saw them prostrating for me. And I saw the sun and the moon as well prostrating for me." So the father responded, "Do not tell your brothers." Why? Because he knew. He was a prophet and he knew things. A believer has insight. A regular believer like you and I, we have insight. When somebody comes to us and he doesn't like us and he has a fake smile, we know, most of us. Or when somebody comes to us and he loves us so much, we could feel it. So how would it be with a prophet? Prophet Yaqub. He already knows these things. He knows who loves Yusuf and he knows who hates him. So he told Yusuf, "Do not tell your brothers because they will plot against you." And subhanAllah, he didn't tell the brothers and yet they plotted against him. And what was meant by these planets prostrating to Yusuf is mentioned at the end of the story. And we're going to get to that inshallah. So just remember throughout my talk, remember the planets, the 11 planets and the sun and the moon prostrating to Yusuf. And then we're going to move further with the story and get back to that inshallah. Now, the father agreed to allow the brothers to take Yusuf out so they could play. He finally agreed. He said, okay, let him go out and play. But don't go so far, and please take care of him. So they took Yusuf, they had smiles on their faces, they were happy, and suddenly when they reached really, really far away from the house, what happened was these faces, the smiling faces turned into envious, frowned faces. So you could see the evil in their eyes. You could see that, they don't want good for Yusuf. Suddenly, just now they were laughing and smiling, playing with him. Now they know they are far away from the house. Yusuf cannot run back to the home, so their faces changed. They became evil, and they started whispering into each other's ears. And Yusuf is looking around, and he was very innocent. He's wondering what's going on. So suddenly, as they were planning, some of them were speaking, and they were saying, let's kill him. The others said, let's not kill him, but let's throw him in the well. And at the end, they came to a conclusion that they're not going to kill Yusuf, but they are going to throw him in a well. We all know what a whale is, right? A whale is a hole that releases water. You put in a cup, a bowl, and then you pull it out with a rope and it releases water. It's something they used to use back in the day before technology came into existence. So they threw Yusuf inside this well, and Yusuf, a young child, 7, 8, 9 years old, perhaps even 6, inside the well all alone, and they laugh and they run away. They left this area and went back home screaming and crying, acting. They prepared, a scenario. They went back to the father and they said, and they had Yusuf's shirt. They took Yusuf's shirt with them and they put fake blood on it. What is this blood? Is it ketchup? Is it sauce? Is it something? We don't know. But it's fake blood. It's not real blood. So they came to the father Yaqub, the prophet, and they said, and they were screaming and crying, Yusuf was eaten by the wolf. Yusuf was eaten by the wolf. So then the father said, his reaction was, Sabrun Jameel. The outcome of this is going to be good. The patience is going to be beautiful. SubhanAllah. This was the reaction of Prophet Yaqub. Allah trained him. Allah gave him the ability to react this way. Imagine if somebody comes to you and says your son was kidnapped or your son was eaten by a wolf. You will pull your hair, you may fall on the floor and go numb. You may scream, you may overreact and not know what to do, you may go crazy, you may pass out. Yaqub said, Subhanallah, and he said, Sabrun Jameel. This outcome, the patience for this is going to be good. Something behind this is good. Right now this is anxiety, this is stress. I'm going to go through a difficult time, but the end is going to be good. And SubhanAllah, he did go through a difficult time. Even though he was able to be patient during that reaction, yet he got so sad. He got so sad that he lost his sight. He became blind. Yaqub, the father of Yusuf, also known as Jacob in the scriptures. So he became so sad that he got blind. Now, in the meantime, Yusuf is in the well, and some people come to the well and they find a beautiful, handsome young child. So they take him out and they sell him to the people. And they sell him for very cheap, for like nothing. They didn't know this is a prophet. They didn't know this man is, somebody who is great, selected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they sold him to the master of Egypt. The master of Egypt bought him and he raised him. He took care of him in his house. SubhanAllah, when you hear this part of the story, it reminds you of the part of Musa when he was found in the river and he was in the house of the enemy, Fir'aun. But the difference here is that the master is not the enemy of Yusuf, but his wife is the enemy. Even though she loves him, she is the enemy because she's calling him to bad. So Yusuf grew older and he was known to be handsome. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, he told his companions in a hadith that Yusuf has half of the beauty of this earth. So if you combine all men and women in one circle, and you combine Yusuf alone in another circle, Yusuf gets half of the beauty. If you put them all in one circle, Yusuf gets half, and the whole world gets the other half. That's how handsome he was. So when the women would see him, they would chop their fingers off from the beauty. You know, they would be so mesmerized by the look of Yusuf, and they would be cutting the fruits, and they would chop their fingers off from his beauty. They forget about the fruits, and they chop their fingers off. So the mistress, the wife of the master, she was living in the house of Yusuf. She knew Yusuf. She knows his secrets. She sees him day and night. So she fell in love with him. The shaitan deceived her. She probably had weak faith, or she was a disbeliever. Allah knows best. So the shaitan deceived her. And she came to him one day. She came to Yusuf almost naked or naked, Allahu A'lam. And what happened was she tried to have sexual intercourse with him. Yusuf ran away from her. She's chasing him. She pulled the back of his shirt. She pulled it. So then the master walked in after Yusuf walked away from her. He refused. He didn't give up to this test, this severe trial. This is a trial not anybody could pass. Only a prophet and people who are very, very pious. We ask Allah to make us amongst those people who are pious. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ narrated a hadith of 7 people, 7 categories of people who will be under the shade of Allah in Yawm al-Qiyamah, on the Day of Judgment. One of these people will be a person who a powerful woman came to him, and she has beauty and she has power, and she said, I want to do something with you, I want to have sexual intercourse with you, but he said, Inni akhaf Allah, verily I fear Allah. This person, if he is able to say that and do that action, then Allah will save him on the Day of Judgment. The only person who I know who was able to do that action is Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. So what happened was, he was attacked by the woman. The master walked in, and the master said, what is going on? You know, he got really angry. His wife is cheating on him with the guy who they raised in their house. So a witness observed and came near and said, let me help you out. If the shirt is torn from the front of his chest, then that means he came to her and she tore the chest trying to push him. But if the shirt is torn from the back of the chest, from his back, that means he was escaping from her and she came to him and she pulled it. So then the master knew that his wife did this, and he said, Yusuf a'rid an hada, Yusuf, turn away from this. And he told the wife, seek forgiveness. Astaghfiri li dhanbik, seek forgiveness for what you did. So then the rumors were spread, the people started to talk, and it reached the whole village that Yusuf almost had sexual intercourse with the master's wife. The master didn't like that. The people in the village didn't like that. The males in the village were quite jealous because their wives would be looking at Yusuf every time he walks out. So they all plotted to have him arrested. So he was arrested and he was taken to jail. Now pay attention to this story. The first test he received was that he was inside the well, all alone at the age 7, 8, or 9, or 10. And then he was taken out of the well and sold to the master. After he was sold to the master, he grew up and he was raised in the master's house. Then the wife came to him, tried to have sexual intercourse with him. This is the second test. Then he refused, and the third test was that he was arrested and he was put in jail for many years. Some narrations say 7, some say more than that, and Allah knows best. So now, Yusuf has been in jail for all these years. He's been away from his parents, from his family for all these years, just because of his brothers, his siblings, who threw him in the well. One day, now Yusuf was known to interpret dreams. He was able to interpret dreams. So one day, many years later, the king of Egypt, he saw a dream. So he asked the people, who of you could interpret my dream? A man who was with the king in his house, a servant, was previously in jail with Yusuf. And Yusuf told this man, when you go to work at the king's house, tell him to release me, because I am innocent. So this servant forgot. Many years passed. And one day the king spoke loud, "Who of you could interpret this dream?" So the servant says, "I know somebody who could interpret this dream. His name is Yusuf and he is in prison." So he said, "Go bring him to me." As a matter of fact, go to jail and speak to him and tell him about this dream. So he goes to jail, he visits Yusuf and he tells him about the dream. Then he comes back and he gives him the interpretation of the dream. The king was impressed. How did he know the interpretation of this dream? This is not an ordinary man. Let me go to jail and visit Yusuf. So he goes to jail, he visits Yusuf, he speaks to him, then Yusuf makes a request. He says, "O king, release me from jail, but don't release me until you speak to the woman, the mistress, and let her confess. Let her confess so that they don't say, the people in the village don't say, oh, the king got him out of jail. You know, there's dhulm, the king helped him. Go to the mistress and let her confess that she has wronged herself." So he went to the mistress who came to him, who came to Yusuf before, she confessed and she said, "I am the one who did it. Yusuf is innocent." So Yusuf was released from jail. Some months pass and Yusuf sees his brothers. They leave their village and they come to the village or the area of Yusuf. Now Yusuf is a grown man, perhaps 30 years old, 29 years old, something like that. So they come to Yusuf and they don't know him, but he knows them. Because remember, he's a prophet and he has insight and he sees with the light of Allah. Allah shows him. So he knew the brothers and he didn't speak to them immediately. But after a few visits, because they would come to him and they would buy some things in his area or in his shop. So after a few visits, he told them, "Bring your brother Benjamin, also known as Benjamin. Bring him. He is the youngest brother." Yaqub, the father, he loves Yusuf and he loves Benjamin the most. And the brothers are jealous of these two. So Yusuf said, "Bring Benjamin." They bring Benjamin to him and Yusuf keeps him with him. And they go back. And they go to the father and they say, "Oh father, Benjamin is taken away from us." The father Yaqub says, "First it's Yusuf, now it's Benjamin. What are you doing?" So then he said, "Sabrun jameel." The patience is going to be good. The outcome of this patience is going to be wonderful. So then what happens? The father later on discovers that Yusuf and Benjamin are in that area in Egypt because the brothers come back. They come back to the father and they come back with the shirt of Yusuf. They came back with the shirt of Yusuf. Now imagine this. You're sitting in your position and some people are coming to you with the shirt of your son and they are far away, like a few meters. Maybe they're downstairs or on these stairs walking towards you. And as you are sitting, a blind old man, maybe in your 60s or 70s, then you smell the scent of your son from the far distance. And he said, this is Yaqub, he smelt the scent of his son because the shirt is coming to him. So he said, "I smell Yusuf." The people around him said, "You are turning into a madman. You know, it's just because you're too worried about Yusuf and you've been thinking about him so much. This is why you smell. It's just an illusion. It's not true." He said, "No, I smell Yusuf." Then the brothers came to the father and they threw the shirt of Yusuf on Yaqub. Yaqub smelled the shirt and his sight returned. He was able to see again. That was the relief from his test. Sabrul Jameel. Remember at the beginning, when Yusuf was young and he was kidnapped, the reaction of Yaqub, he said, "This outcome is going to be good. Sabrun Jameel." This is the sabr. How many years later? Nearly 30 years. Subhanallah. What a calamity. So then the brothers say, "Let's go to Yusuf. He wants us to visit him." So the whole family goes. All the brothers, the father and the mother, they go to the area of Yusuf. And once they reach there, what happens? The brothers, the 11 brothers, they all prostrate in front of Yusuf. And the father and the mother, they prostrate in front of Yusuf. Now the Imam said in the khutbah that the previous nations, they were allowed to prostrate They were allowed to prostrate to people who are of high honor. Yusuf was of high honor because he is a prophet. But they weren't worshiping Yusuf. It was a prostration out of respect, just as we handshake each other. So Yusuf, he goes to the father, he's happy, he's hugging him, he's smiling. After all these years, he hasn't seen him, about 30 years. Now he's reunited with his father. His father is happy. He's looking at Yusuf, looking at his beauty. And then Yusuf says, "Oh my father, do you remember the dream that I came to you about? The 11 planets prostrating to me, and the sun and the moon? This is the interpretation of the dream. My 11 brothers prostrated, you and my mother are the sun and the moon, you prostrated." And subhanAllah, Yusuf said, after the shaitan deceived my brothers to take me away from you and throw me in the well, after I was released from prison and now reunited with you. After all these tests, he doesn't blame his brothers. He doesn't get angry at his brothers. He doesn't choke them and hit them for throwing him in the well. But he says, this is the plot of the shaitan. The shaitan plotted for this. He's telling his father. And he forgave his brothers. And the father, Yaqub, he forgave his sons for what they did. It took a little time for the father to forgive, but he did eventually forgive. It didn't take no time for Yusuf to forgive. He immediately forgave them when they came and spoke to him. SubhanAllah. What do we extract from this story? We extract the reality that we are going to be tested. We are going to be afflicted. And we should be patient. And remember that sabrun jameel, the patience is going to be of a good outcome. The Imam continued after that, and he talked about a king. A king of a village from the people of the previous times before us. This king, he had a minister working in his house. And every time something would happen, the minister near the king would say, "Khair insha'Allah." The outcome of this is going to be good, insha'Allah. So one day the king he hurt his finger, and the doctor said, "We have to cut your finger off." So they had his finger cut off. Then the king called the minister, and he said, "My finger was cut off. What do you say about this?" The minister said, "Khair insha'Allah." The outcome is good, insha'Allah. The king got angry. "My finger is cut off, and you say khair insha'Allah? Take him to prison." So he was taken to prison. And as he was taken to prison, he looks at the king and he says, "Khair insha'Allah." The outcome is good, insha'Allah. Now, he said khair insha'Allah for two things. Because the king's finger was cut off, and because he's being imprisoned now. So one day, the king left his house and he walked around the village, and suddenly he was taken by some people who worship idols. These idol worshippers, it was that day of their Eid, their holiday, to sacrifice for their idol, for their false god. So they found the king and they said, "Okay, let's sacrifice, let's slaughter this king." They took the king and they tied him up and they got ready to slaughter him. One said, "Wait, he's missing a finger. If we slaughter somebody, he has to be perfect. He cannot be missing a finger." So they said, "Release him." The king was released. He ran to his house. He went to the prison. He spoke to the minister. He said, "Come here. When you said khair insha'Allah, you were right. I was just going to be chopped off, dead. But because I lost a finger, they let me go. But wait a minute. When I imprisoned you, you said khair insha'Allah. What about that?" The minister said, "I am your minister, your right-hand man. If I was with you and they didn't chop off your finger, then they would have chopped off my head." Subhanallah. So khair insha'Allah. The outcome is good. The outcome is good, insha'Allah. That is the khutbah of today. We need to take this lesson into our hearts. The outcome is good no matter what you go through, no matter how big the difficulty is. I advise myself and I advise you to repeat to yourself inside your heart, repeat it to Allah, khair insha'Allah, and believe that the outcome is good. And and say, Sabrun Jameel, the patience will be good. And be patient. Do not complain to human beings. Try not to complain to human beings. If you're severely sick and you need a doctor, okay. In this case, you have to see a doctor so he can tell you what to take. But don't complain to human beings. Ya akhi, my salary is low. Ya akhi, I'm feeling a headache. You know, I have pains here and I have pains here. You're going to make the humans sad. They're not going to solve your problem. All you're going to do is make them sad, right? So instead of complaining to them, complain to Allah directly. Because the human is going to tell you, Ya akhi, tawakkal ala Allah. Just, turn back to Allah and rely on Allah. So you make a shortcut. Instead of hearing that from the human, rely on Allah completely. Hope the message is clear. وَجَزَاكُمُ اللَّهُ خَيْرًا وَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ فِيكُمْ وَصَلِّ اللَّهُمَّ عَلَى مُحَمَّدٍ وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَيْكُمْ وَرَحْمَةُ اللَّهِ وَبَرَكَاتُهُ.